Have you ever walked into an old Japanese home during the middle of summer and wondered how it feels surprisingly cool, even though there isn't an air conditioner humming in the background? Outside, the sun is beating down. The streets feel almost unbearable. Yet inside, the air somehow feels lighter, calmer, and far more comfortable than you would expect. Most people assume there's a hidden cooling system somewhere in the house. Others think the buildings are made from some special material that naturally stays cold. But neither explanation tells the full story. The secret isn't one invention. It isn't one expensive product. And it certainly isn't something that only works in Japan. Instead, it's a collection of simple habits that have been refined over hundreds of years, long before electricity, long before air conditioning, and long before anyone worried about rising energy bills. What's remarkable is that these habits don't require remodeling your home. Most don't even require buying anything new. They're based on understanding something many of us never think about: how heat actually enters a house. Because here's what most people do on a hot summer day. The temperature starts climbing, so every window gets shut tightly. The curtains are pulled closed, the air conditioner is switched on, and from that moment forward, the house becomes a sealed box. The cooling system spends the rest of the day trying to remove heat that's constantly building inside. It works, but it works by consuming electricity hour after hour. Now compare that with the traditional Japanese approach. Instead of trapping air inside the house all day, the goal is to work with nature instead of against it. The house breathes when the outside air is cooler. It protects itself when the sun becomes intense. And rather than removing heat after it enters, the focus is preventing much of that heat from entering in the first place. That small shift in thinking changes everything. Before we talk about the actual methods, there's one important idea to understand. Not all heat is the same. This is where many people accidentally make their homes warmer without realizing it. There are really two different kinds of heat affecting your home during summer. The first is the temperature of the air itself. This is what you notice when you step outside and immediately feel hot. The second is something called radiant heat. Radiant heat is stored inside walls, roofs, furniture, floors, windows, and even countertops after they've absorbed sunlight throughout the day. Have you ever walked into a room after sunset and wondered why it still feels warm even though the outdoor temperature has dropped? That's radiant heat. The walls and furniture continue releasing the heat they collected earlier. Many cooling methods only deal with the first problem. Traditional Japanese homes are designed to reduce both. And that's where the first habit begins. It's a practice that's been used for centuries. It's called uchimizu. The word simply means sprinkling water. At first glance, it sounds almost too simple. Can pouring a little water outside really make a difference? Actually, yes, but the timing matters more than the amount of water. Early in the morning, before the pavement has become hot, people sprinkle water across stone paths, sidewalks, patios, entryways, and courtyards. As the water slowly evaporates, it pulls heat away from those surfaces. It's exactly the same reason your skin feels cooler after stepping out of a swimming pool. Evaporation removes heat. Because the ground stays cooler, the air immediately above it also becomes cooler. That cooler air naturally drifts toward nearby windows and entrances before the day reaches its highest temperatures. One watering can is often enough. There's no need to soak everything. In fact, using too much water simply wastes it. The goal isn't creating puddles, it's creating evaporation. Many neighborhoods in Japan still practice this together during particularly hot summers. When dozens or even hundreds of homes cool the ground around them at the same time, the effect becomes noticeable throughout the entire street. Now imagine combining that with another simple habit: opening your windows. Most people assume windows should stay open whenever the weather is warm. It sounds logical. Fresh air should cool the house. But here's the question: What happens if the air outside is actually hotter than the air inside? Every minute those windows stay open, you're inviting hot air directly into your home. Without realizing it, you're heating the house instead of cooling it. Traditional Japanese homes follow a completely different schedule. Early in the morning, while outdoor temperatures are still low, windows are opened wide. This allows cool morning air to move naturally through the home. The goal isn't just fresh air. It's replacing yesterday's warmer indoor air with cooler morning air before the sun becomes intense. Then, something interesting happens. As outdoor temperatures continue rising, the windows are closed. Not because airflow is bad, but because airflow only helps when the incoming air is actually cooler. This often surprises people. Closing windows during the hottest hours isn't trapping heat. It's preventing hotter outdoor air from replacing cooler indoor air. Later, after sunset, everything changes again. As soon as outdoor temperatures begin dropping below indoor temperatures, the windows open once more. Cool evening air moves through the house, carrying away the warmth that's built up during the day. This simple morning and evening routine often produces better results than leaving windows open continuously, and it doesn't cost a single dollar. Now let's talk about sunlight. Most people think curtains solve the problem. Unfortunately, by the time sunlight reaches your curtains, much of the heat has already entered through the glass. Glass acts almost like a greenhouse. Sunlight passes through easily. Heat becomes trapped inside. That's why standing beside a sunny window often feels much warmer than standing elsewhere in the room. Traditional Japanese homes solve this problem before the sunlight even touches the glass. Instead of hanging heavy curtains inside the room, they often use woven bamboo screens or reed blinds outside the window. This detail makes an enormous difference. Because the sunlight never reaches the glass, the window itself stays much cooler. Less heat enters the room. The walls surrounding the window also remain cooler throughout the afternoon. Think about standing under a tree. The shade feels cooler because the sunlight never reaches you directly. The same principle works for your windows. Stopping sunlight outside is always more effective than blocking it after it has already entered. The nice thing is that you don't necessarily need traditional Japanese bamboo screens. Any outdoor shade designed to block direct sunlight before it reaches the window can help reduce indoor temperatures. The key word is outside. Placing shades inside the room simply isn't as effective because the heat has already crossed the glass. Now, here's another habit that surprises many people. It has nothing to do with windows. Nothing to do with fans. Nothing to do with water. It involves the floor beneath your feet. Traditional Japanese homes often use tatami flooring made from woven rush grass. During summer, these natural materials remain noticeably cooler than many synthetic floor coverings. Why? Because natural fibers breathe. They don't trap heat the same way many modern materials do. Even if your home doesn't have tatami floors, natural fiber rugs made from materials like rush grass, bamboo, or similar woven plants can provide a cooler surface during hot weather. You may not lower the room's temperature dramatically, but your body notices the difference immediately when you're sitting, kneeling, or walking barefoot. Comfort isn't only about the thermometer. It's about how your body experiences the environment. This is one reason traditional Japanese homes often feel cooler than their actual temperature would suggest. Everything works together. The airflow, the shade, the flooring, the moisture, each element contributes a little. Together, they create a surprisingly comfortable space. At this point, you may be wondering whether these methods actually work in modern homes. The answer is yes. You don't need to own a traditional Japanese house. You don't need paper walls. You don't need wooden architecture. The principles remain exactly the same because physics hasn't changed. Heat still enters through windows. Cool air still settles during early morning. Evaporation still removes heat. Natural airflow still works. These ideas are just as useful in an apartment as they are in a house. In fact, many people discover that making just 2 or 3 small changes noticeably improves comfort without touching the thermostat. And that's only the beginning. I'd love to know something. What is the hottest room in your home during summer? Is it your bedroom, your living room, your kitchen, or maybe an upstairs room that feels impossible to cool? Let me know in the comments because I'm curious to see which room gives people the most trouble. Because in the next part, we'll look at several lesser-known Japanese habits that reduce indoor heat even further, including one simple change in your kitchen that can lower the temperature of your entire home. Why traditional Japanese homes almost never fight the afternoon sun directly, and how a few small daily routines can make your house feel noticeably cooler without relying on air conditioning. Now that you understand how traditional Japanese homes control sunlight, airflow, and radiant heat, it's time to look at the habits that happen inside the house. These are the small daily routines that most people never think about, yet they can make a noticeable difference over the course of an entire summer. The interesting thing is that none of these habits were created to save electricity. Most of them existed long before electricity was common. People simply learned through experience that certain routines made their homes feel cooler. Over generations, those routines became part of everyday life. One of the biggest examples is the kitchen. Think about what happens every time you turn on your oven. The oven itself becomes incredibly hot, but that's only part of the problem. The heat doesn't disappear when you're finished cooking. It spreads into the walls, the cabinets, the countertops, and eventually into the air throughout the house. Even after dinner is over, that heat continues radiating into your living space. Now, imagine doing that every afternoon during the hottest part of the day. You're essentially heating your home from the inside while the sun is heating it from the outside. Traditional Japanese households avoid this whenever possible. Instead of preparing large, hot meals during the afternoon, cooking is often done early in the morning or later in the evening when outdoor temperatures are much lower. During the hottest hours, meals are kept simple: cold noodles, fresh vegetables, rice prepared earlier, grilled fish cooked before the heat peaks, foods that require very little additional cooking. The goal isn't avoiding warm food altogether. It's avoiding unnecessary heat inside the house when the sun is already doing enough of that. You might be surprised how much cooler your home feels simply by changing when you cook instead of changing what you cook. Another habit that often surprises visitors is how carefully people manage interior doors. Many of us leave every room connected throughout the day. It feels natural. But if one room receives direct afternoon sunlight, it quickly becomes much warmer than the rest of the house. Leaving every door open allows that hot air to spread everywhere. Traditional Japanese homes often separate spaces more intentionally. Rooms that stay naturally cooler become protected spaces. Warmer rooms remain isolated until evening ventilation removes the accumulated heat. It's a simple idea. Instead of trying to cool the entire house equally, preserve the coolest areas for as long as possible. Now let's talk about fans. Here's where many people unknowingly waste their effort. A fan doesn't actually cool a room. This surprises a lot of people. What a fan really does is move air. If it's simply circulating hot indoor air during the middle of the afternoon, the room itself isn't becoming cooler. Your body feels cooler because sweat evaporates faster, but the room's temperature barely changes. Traditional Japanese homes often use fans differently. During the evening, once outdoor temperatures begin dropping, a fan is placed near an open window. Instead of blowing randomly around the room, it helps pull cool evening air through the house. Now the moving air is actually replacing warmer indoor air with cooler outdoor air. That's a much more effective use of the same fan. Morning ventilation works exactly the same way. A gentle breeze moving through multiple open windows refreshes the entire house before the day's heat arrives. The important lesson isn't buying a stronger fan, it's using airflow at the right time. Another traditional practice involves something most people completely overlook: humidity. When people think about staying cool, they usually focus only on temperature. But comfort depends on both temperature and moisture. Air that's too humid feels sticky. Air that's too dry can also become uncomfortable. Traditional Japanese homes naturally allow a gentle exchange of air throughout the day, helping maintain a balanced indoor environment. Modern air conditioning often removes large amounts of moisture from the air. For some people, this creates dry skin, dry eyes, or irritated throats after several hours indoors. The Japanese approach aims for balance rather than extremes. Natural airflow keeps the air fresh without making the home feel overly dry. That's one reason many people describe these homes as feeling comfortable rather than simply cold. Now here's another habit that's incredibly simple: reducing clutter. At first, this doesn't sound related to temperature at all, but think about what happens in a crowded room. Large furniture blocks airflow. Stacks of boxes trap warm air. Heavy decorations reduce the movement of natural breezes. Traditional Japanese interiors are often remarkably open. There's space for air to move freely. Cross-ventilation works best when there are fewer obstacles interrupting its path. You don't need to redesign your entire home. Even creating a clearer path between two open windows can noticeably improve airflow. Sometimes comfort isn't about adding something. It's about removing what's getting in the way. Plants also play an important role. Many Japanese homes place greenery around windows, balconies, and entrances. Of course, plants look beautiful, but they also provide shade. Leaves intercept sunlight before it reaches walls and windows. The soil beneath them stays cooler than exposed concrete. As moisture evaporates from the leaves, the surrounding air becomes slightly cooler as well. This natural process, called transpiration, is happening constantly. One plant won't transform your home overnight, but several well-placed plants near sunny windows or patios can reduce the amount of heat reaching your home throughout the day. Nature ends up becoming part of the cooling system. Now let's look at something that almost everyone does without thinking: lighting. Traditional Japanese homes relied heavily on daylight. When artificial lighting was needed, it was used thoughtfully. Modern LED bulbs produce very little heat compared to older incandescent bulbs. But many homes still have decorative lighting that generates unnecessary warmth. During summer, turning off lights in unused rooms isn't just saving electricity, it's also preventing extra heat from building inside. Every small source of heat adds up: computers, large televisions, gaming consoles, clothes dryers, even charging devices. Individually, they seem insignificant. Together, they slowly warm the house throughout the day. Japanese summer living often encourages using only what's necessary during the hottest hours. Not because technology is bad, but because every appliance converts energy into heat. Less heat produced indoors means less heat that needs to be removed later. Perhaps the most interesting habit of all has nothing to do with the house itself. It has to do with expectations. Many people believe comfort means maintaining exactly the same indoor temperature all day long. Traditional Japanese living takes a different approach. Instead of trying to force the entire house to remain at one perfect temperature, people naturally adjust their daily activities. Morning becomes the time for more active work. Afternoons encourage slower routines. Evenings become opportunities to fully ventilate the home before bedtime. Rather than fighting the rhythm of summer, daily life flows alongside it. It's a subtle mindset, but it changes everything. You stop asking, "How can I overpower the heat?" Instead, you begin asking, "How can I work with the coolest parts of the day?" That single question often leads to better solutions than buying another cooling appliance. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson behind all of these traditional practices. They're not complicated. They're intentional. Each one saves only a small amount of heat, but together, those small savings become significant. A little less sunlight entering through the windows, a little less heat produced in the kitchen, a little more fresh air during the morning, a little more evening ventilation, a little more natural shade. None of these changes seem dramatic on their own. Yet combined, they completely change how a home feels during summer. And in the final part, we'll bring everything together into one complete daily routine you can follow from morning until bedtime. We'll also cover the biggest mistakes that accidentally make homes hotter, why many people cool their houses at exactly the wrong time of day, and how you can apply these traditional Japanese methods, whether you live in a house, an apartment, or even a small studio with no air conditioning at all. By now, you've probably noticed something interesting about these traditional Japanese methods. None of them promise to make your house freezing cold. That was never the goal. Instead, they're designed to make your home naturally comfortable while using as little energy as possible. Rather than relying on one powerful machine to solve every problem, they combine dozens of small improvements that work together. And that's exactly why they've lasted for centuries. Let's imagine what a typical summer day might look like if you followed these habits from start to finish. Your day begins just after sunrise. The outdoor air is still cool, and before the sun has had time to warm the ground, you open the windows throughout the house. Fresh morning air flows from one side of the home to the other, carrying away the warmth that built up overnight. If you have a fan, this is the perfect time to use it. Instead of pointing it at yourself, place it where it helps move cool outdoor air through the house. Within a short time, the entire home feels refreshed without using an air conditioner. Before going back inside, you sprinkle a small amount of water around your entrance, patio, or walkway. As it slowly evaporates, it cools the surrounding surfaces and the air above them. It only takes a minute or two, yet you're already reducing the amount of heat that will build around your home later in the day. Next comes the most important step. Before late morning, when the outdoor temperature begins climbing, you close the windows. Many people think this traps heat inside. In reality, you're trapping the cooler morning air while keeping hotter afternoon air outside where it belongs. At the same time, any outdoor shades, bamboo blinds, or exterior screens are lowered over windows receiving direct sunlight. Instead of allowing the glass to become hot like a radiator, the sunlight is stopped before it ever reaches the window. Inside the house, the difference may not seem dramatic during the first hour, but by mid-afternoon, you'll begin to notice that the rooms stay noticeably more comfortable than they normally would. When lunchtime arrives, you resist the temptation to turn on the oven. Instead, meals are simple, fresh, and require very little cooking. Not because you're sacrificing comfort, but because you're avoiding adding unnecessary heat to a house that's already working hard to stay cool. During the hottest part of the afternoon, you also avoid creating extra heat from unnecessary appliances whenever possible. Lights remain off in empty rooms. Large electronics aren't left running unless they're needed. Every small decision prevents a little more heat from accumulating. By early evening, something begins to change. The sun starts dropping lower in the sky. Outdoor temperatures gradually fall. This is when the house begins breathing again. Windows are opened once more, creating cross-ventilation that carries away the warmth stored inside throughout the day. If there's a gentle breeze, nature does most of the work for you. If the air is still, a small fan helps encourage fresh evening air to move through the rooms. By bedtime, your home has already released much of the heat collected during the afternoon. The cycle is complete, and tomorrow morning, it begins again. What makes this routine so effective is that every step happens before the problem becomes severe. You're not waiting until your house is unbearably hot. You're preventing much of that heat from building in the first place. That difference is the heart of traditional Japanese summer living. Now, it's also important to understand what these methods cannot do. If you live somewhere experiencing extreme heat waves with temperatures well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, these habits may not completely replace air conditioning. Health and safety should always come first, especially for older adults, young children, or anyone with medical conditions that make heat dangerous. Traditional cooling methods are meant to reduce heat, improve comfort, and lower energy use. They're not a replacement for medical advice or emergency cooling when temperatures become hazardous. In many climates, however, these habits can dramatically reduce how often you need to run your air conditioner. Instead of using it all day, you may only need it during the hottest few hours. That alone can make a significant difference in both electricity costs and overall comfort. Perhaps the biggest lesson isn't about cooling at all. It's about paying attention. Traditional Japanese homes encourage people to notice the direction of the sun, the movement of the breeze, the temperature of different rooms, and the rhythm of the day itself. Instead of forcing the environment to behave one way, they respond to what nature is already doing. It's a quieter approach, a slower approach, but often a remarkably effective one. And maybe that's why these methods continue to be passed from one generation to the next. Not because they're complicated, but because they work. So, if you'd like to try something new, don't feel like you need to change everything overnight. Tomorrow morning, open your windows early. Close them before the afternoon heat arrives. Block direct sunlight before it reaches the glass. Cook a lighter meal later in the evening. Try just one or two of these habits and notice the difference. Sometimes, the smallest changes produce the biggest improvements over time. I'd love to hear about your experience. Have you ever used any of these traditional cooling methods, or is there a summer habit that has always worked well in your home? Share it in the comments. Your idea might help someone else stay cool this summer. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this guide and want to discover more practical ideas inspired by traditional Japanese living, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next one. Until next time, stay cool, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.